So another characteristic of professions, they come with responsibilities. And I will tell you, this is Jim Rainey's opinion. You need to think through this and be able to articulate it yourself. I think our professional responsibility is to win wars. And most people stop there, right? Fight and win the nation's wars. First of all, if you can win without fighting, everybody's up for that, right? And fighting, it's good to be good at fighting, but you don't get any credit for fighting unless you win. I think our responsibility is even higher. This might be some of the reason we've struggled over the last 20 years is we forgot a few things or we didn't focus enough. Not only do we got to win wars, we got to win them in a way that's sustainable and in a way that's worthy of the cost. So think about that. That's a pretty high bar there, ladies and gentlemen. We got to win wars. We got to win them in a way that's sustainable. So we got to consolidate gains so we don't have to fight them again. And at the end of the day, we should be able to look at what we paid for that win in terms of treasure, and most importantly, human life, right? Blood and treasure. And not just us, but our countrymen should be able to say, okay, that was worth it. I think when you're talking to younger folks, it's worth taking a little bit of time and defining winning, right? Because winning's starting to get a little fluid with all the complexity we have going in the world today. It's hard to tell how you win in competition. It's hard to tell how you win against an insurgency, right? To me, we're constantly competing and winning if we end up in conflict, right? So if you win in competition, you don't end up in conflict. But if you get into conflict, I think winning's about getting it back to competition. There's not going to be any more signing of surrender documents on battleships, I don't think, right? So we want to return to competition at a position of advantage that was worth the cost, right? Be able to consolidate the gains, get back. So that's how I would define winning if asked. We got a professional responsibility. We also have professional competency. Competency. So what's our competency as a profession? Again, you can define it yourself. This is mine. I think we have a requirement to be competent at the ethical application and management of violence. Right? I mean, not everybody has a bomb or a bullet at the end of what they do, but everybody contributes to that in some way. And this is important when you think about, like I said, most of y'all got some combat experience here. If you think about large-scale combat ops and what's going to be different, I think this is one of the key things we need to be wrestling with as professionals, is thinking folks. Because there's a big difference between rules of engagement that you all grew up with and the law of armed conflict, okay? They are different things. You can't ever conflate those two. You need to understand that. That takes some time and study. Example, you and your formation are taking fire from a hospital. Can you, right? So ROE, the way we all were raised, that's probably off limits, right? It's probably on a protected target list. And I'm not saying you should shoot it, but you need to understand the concept of surrender or protected status, for example, right? So should you is always going to be your call. What you need to understand is what you can and can't do as a values-based member under the law of armed conflict. Takes some study. What are we going to be expert at? I would offer a couple that I think are non-negotiable, right? I think you got to be expert. We have to be experts at leadership. And at this level, not just yourself, not just how good a leader you are, but you're at the point in your career where the ability to develop others, do leader development, is as important, if not more important, than your ability to lead well, right? So it's kind of an expectation that you guys have figured out how to be a good leader. But the how you make a good leader, part of that is just as important. So leadership and warfighting. Those are two non-negotiable things at this point in your career you got to be expert at. Have to. There can be others, right? If you're a procurement, if you're a PEO, if you're a foreign area officer, special forces officer, there can be others. But every one of us, expertise as a leader, to include developing others, and an expert at warfighting. Everybody has a war fight. I grew up as an infantry guy, so I kind of have a tendency to talk about squads and brigades and things like that, but it applies to everybody. The entire United States Army, all 1.2 million of us, exist to put a rifle squad in a position of advantage on the battlefield. I mean, it doesn't mean they're better or not, just, that's how it works. So you ought to be able to articulate how what you do contributes to that.